My name is Jen Chaney. I'm the Vice President of Franchise Development for Right at Home. I have my friend Nikki joining me today. I will let Nikki introduce herself here in just a moment. But for those of you that are listening live, we love audience participation. And I encourage you to ask a question over the course of the next 30 minutes when Nikki and I are visiting. So it depends on how your Zoom is set up on your screen, either at the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen. You can click on a button that says Q&A. If you click on that, a box will pop up and you can type in your question. There's even a little box there that you can click that says anonymous. If you don't want people to know what your name is, totally fine. It's up to you either way. But Nikki, you don't have to watch the Q&A box. I will keep my eye on that and I will ask questions as they come up. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good, boss.
Okay, awesome. So Nikki, if you would please introduce yourself to our listeners, what your role is, how long you've been with Right at Home, and a little bit about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, happy to. So thanks for having me, Jen. So my name, like Jen said, I'm Nikki Holles. I am the Vice President of Human Resources here for Right at Home. I have been with Right at Home, coming up on my 4-year anniversary, which is incredible. Started just a few months before the world shut down. So it's been quite the journey. But prior to that, I have about 25 years or so. I always say I started when I was 12, but about 25 years of HR experience. And prior to coming to Right at Home, I also had about 7 years of home care and franchising experience. So pretty good background in all things that we're going to be talking about today. And as the Vice President of HR, I have a few different hats that I wear, but I think most interestingly to the listeners today is working with a team that is dedicated to coaching franchisees and their office staff on all things caregiver and office staff recruitment, retention, engagement, and labor law compliance. So that's really where our wheelhouse is at, and that's what we focus on as we continue to support franchisees in our brand.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Thank you, Nikki. I'm going to start at the very beginning. Okay, so I'm looking at the topic of this webinar, and it's caregiver recruitment and retention. So that is a topic of conversation over the next 30 minutes. I'm going to start at the very beginning. So let's pretend that we've got, because I can see some people on the call here. And by the way, this audience, people are listening to this webinar either live or on a recorded basis. They're interested in joining the Right at Home system. So they're wanting to know what kind of support or guidance or coaching do we provide to franchisees and office staff. I do want to note to individuals right when they become Right at Home franchise owners, and then their journey and their tenure as a 10-year franchise agreement being a Right at Home franchisee. So let's pretend somebody has just signed a franchise agreement. They're just starting out. They don't have an office open yet. Where do you even begin when it comes to the starting point of recruiting caregivers? You got to recruit them first, and then we'll focus on the retention part. But where does somebody even begin? Somebody who joins our system who has no experience with this. It's part of being a franchise is that we've got this, support and guidance to help them with the things that they've never done before. But where does one start before their office is even open to recruit some caregivers?
Yeah, really great question. And I'm going to do my best not to take up too much time, but it's a pretty involved answer. So I'm going to do my best to kind of lay it out here. So one of the pieces that we really focus on is making the journey make sense for a new franchisee. So instead of, somebody signing their franchise agreement and we just kind of start off just throwing stuff at you and saying, okay, now you got to do this and do this. We really try to take a very calculated approach to all things employee experience related. So what that means is we really start with a foundational phone call training where we talk about all things related to the compliance associated with hiring staff, to employing staff. what it means to set up your payroll and what that needs to look like, what it means to set up your applicant tracking system so you can start to recruit, and what do those best practices look like. And oh, by the way, who are our preferred vendors so that you can get some great deals on pricing and already established workflows and best practices and templates that you can use in those types of systems. So really setting that foundation first and then building off of that foundation. So as we continue that journey from when somebody signs their franchise agreement until they open their doors, there's a lot of touch points that happen in between those two milestones. And some of those touch points include Zoom meetings, a virtual training where we are talking about how to use your ATS functionality. What can it do for you? How do you ensure that you are posting or looking for the right types of candidates, whether that be an office staff person you need to hire or caregivers that you need to hire? What should that speed look like? How many should you have as you look to open your business? So really walking through those pieces. And then all the way to that in-person training that happens here in Omaha, Nebraska. It's cold today, but normally beautiful Omaha, Nebraska, where you really learn and do some role playing with interviews and onboarding and orientation, and really kind of working the kinks out so that when you do go back to your office and you're ready to start looking for those caregivers and those clients, that you have all of these things already in place. And then we're there to help. All right, now you've got your first onboarding, first caregiver onboarding. What should that look like? What are some tools that you need to put in your toolbox? How can you use them? And just taking that person all the way through that journey from, like I said, when they sign that agreement, laying the foundation, and then each building block is building on top of that to the next.
Okay, I have questions.
Yes.
Because I know everything that you just said, it makes perfect sense to me, but there are a few things that you said in there that I know people that are listening like, I wonder what that means, or get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you mentioned an applicant tracking system. So using an applicant tracking system, can you explain, I suppose, first of all, or ATS, as Nikki said a couple of times for short, can you explain to our listeners what an applicant tracking system is? It's that I can answer that question. Yes, it's required. You as a franchise owner use an ATS, but just explain, if you would please, what an ATS is and why it's so beneficial to implement and to use an applicant tracking system.
Yeah, thanks for asking me that. I can go in those rabbit holes sometimes. So an applicant tracking system, a lot of folks think, oh, an applicant tracking system, is that like Indeed? Is that like ZipRecruiter? Is that what you're talking about, Nikki? And I often have to kind of pull back and say, no, it's different. An applicant tracking system is a platform or software, if you will, oftentimes web-based, where it's a central place for a business owner to post their positions. And then what happens is job boards like Indeed, like ZipRecruiter, CareerBuilder, if you will, from years past, they all go in and they actually scrape job postings from applicant tracking systems. So by a franchisee or a business owner simply posting and getting their positions into this platform, this applicant tracking system, it's going to go to those job boards and be posted for those external applicants to find. Then once an applicant sees a position out there on Indeed or any of those job boards and they apply for that job, that person's information comes in to this central platform, your applicant tracking system. So now you can manage your applicants all from all different sources, whether they're coming in from Google, ZipRecruiter, Indeed. You can manage them all in one central location in your applicant tracking system. And then in addition to that kind of simplistic overview of tracking, it also allows you communication tools and workflow tools where you can now automate your responses or your communications with applicants, whether that be through text messages or emails, interview reminders, onboarding reminders, but it allows, again, that one central place where you can communicate and set some automation for those communication pieces to occur with your applicants.
A huge time saver, a way to stay organized. I have a friend who is a dentist. He owned his own dental practice and he's looking for a dental hygienist, and he has to post here and here and here and here and track this one and look at this and all these different places. And like, you need an applicant tracking system. But anyway, 2 questions that have come in, Nikki. The first one says, does Right at Home recommend the proper ATS platform that we should use?
So we do. We have a very great, working relationship with a preferred provider. While we do, Jen had mentioned it's required for franchisees to have an applicant tracking system. We don't dictate which applicant tracking system it has to be. You can choose. That being said, we do have a great preferred provider relationship with an applicant tracking system partner who provides unbelievable pricing to our franchisees, all the functionality you're looking for, and we're able to troubleshoot it here at the corporate office and provide some of those best practices.
Okay, awesome. And then the next question, do you train us on this software?
Yes, it's really a dual effort. We do some training here. It is high-level training that we perform. And then our partner, if you go with our preferred partner, they have an entire implementation team that is dedicated to our franchisees who can provide training, best practices, tools, troubleshooting, all of the things. So you're getting it kind of from both aspects.
Okay, awesome. So I took notes when you had your first, when you were kind of explaining what you do and all the things. You mentioned preferred vendors. So obviously we've got a preferred vendor for our applicant tracking system. There are others, obviously. Can you touch a little bit on, you don't have to name the exact vendor, but other partnerships that we have to help franchise owners with caregiver recruitment in addition to an ATS?
Absolutely. So yes, applicant tracking system, of course. Background check vendors is another really key piece. We have employment labor law preferred partners who are attorneys and provide resources and tools and templates for our franchisees to use. We also have preferred partners for payroll services, payroll platforms, as well as HR and different benefit platforms. We have a preferred partner with a benefits broker who can help each franchisee establish plans that make the most sense for a franchisee who maybe wants to offer some different types of benefits to caregivers or to office staff. We also have a preferred partnership with a caregiver training company for a learning management system that is compliant with all state licensure training. So if you're in Alabama, Alaska, Wisconsin, I don't know why they're all northern so far. I guess Alabama isn't, but regardless of what state you're in, they are compliant with, hey, if this state licensure requires this initial caregiver training and ongoing caregiver training, here it is. We offer it. We've curated it. We update it, and we provide it to you, the franchisee, to use for your caregivers.
Okay.
So just a few examples.
Yes, that's a ton. And what I was getting at is the point that I'm hoping to make to our listeners. We have a lot of people who contemplate starting a business on their own. Starting from scratch, and you have to really weigh the benefits of joining a franchise system. Some people, franchising isn't for them. They want to do all of those things on their own. And they're like, yep, I've got this. I have my own support. I want to do this on my own. However, one of the many benefits of joining Right at Home, a lot that you just mentioned, an independent business owner wouldn't have those connections, wouldn't have that preferred pricing, wouldn't have those preferred vendors, wouldn't have somebody to go to say, who do I use for payroll? Well, listen, we have a built-in relationship with a payroll provider who can offer this service to you. So anyway, just wanted to get at all of the different ways that we help our franchise owners with multiple things when it comes to setting up their business. In addition to just caregiver recruitment and retention, there's so many more things, Nikki. Okay, so something that Nikki mentioned earlier that I wanted to note on, she said that you will eventually come to Omaha for in-person training. If you're working with Jessica or Jenna on our team, you've heard them refer to Residence Week. It's part of our training program that we offer to everyone who joins the Right at Home system. Training begins right after you sign your franchise agreement, leading all the way up to when you open your doors for business. Part of that training includes an entire week in Omaha, in-person training we call Residence Week, where you will learn not only about caregiver recruitment and retention, but a ton of other things as well. But that's just one of the many things that we cover during Residence Week. Okay, so we're 15 minutes in. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about caregiver retention. So we've talked really about the recruiting part, which, by the way, so Nikki has worked her magic and not only talked about recruiting caregivers, but there's office staff. She's talked about training caregivers. There's lots more when it comes to recruiting caregivers, but part of like the retaining part, what are all of the things that we do once a franchise owner hires a caregiver and they're employed with the franchise owner? How do we keep those caregivers? How do we keep them engaged? How do we retain them? How do we get them to stick around? What are all the things that we have, resources and things that we have in place to help and support our franchisees with that initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always say that recruiting actually starts with retention because of all of the magic that has to happen during somebody's tenure with the brand. So first and foremost, I have to give a shout out to our franchisees and to all the people who do get into the business, because they really are the ones that make that magic happen. We are here and I'll talk about what we provide, but we're here to provide the resources, the tools, the best practices, and the franchisees are putting it into action. And that's truly where the magic occurs. So I just have to give a shout out because we have amazing franchisees in our network. That being said, we create, I should say first, and provide training that revolves around how to select the best caregivers. What types of things are you looking for in the interview process? And because that, again, that's where retention is going to come into play. And then from there, once you have a caregiver in, what kind of training, what kind of development opportunities, what kind of growth opportunities are you providing to your caregivers? And we're here to provide you a framework of which to execute and implement within your own office based on what makes sense for your size and for the types of clients that you're providing care for. So those are the types of frameworks that we provide. We also provide, again, back to kind of those preferred partnerships with different engagement platforms, as well as the framework of how to execute on an engagement platform. How do you reward and recognize your caregivers? What types of KPIs are you looking at to move the needle that you need to move? And how do you reward and recognize based on those KPIs to continue to reward the behavior that you're looking for and the metrics that you want to see out of your office? And that's going to be a little bit different for everybody. That's the beauty of all of this. And we're here to really help provide that framework for you to be able to do that. And then, of course, we want to help you create employee referral programs. So providing frameworks around that and maybe a platform to help you do that with ease, because in home care, caregivers are not coming to a central place. They're not coming to a hospital every day to work or to a long-term care facility. They're going to their clients' homes. And so really creating and having a robust platform and tool that you can use to communicate on a regular basis with your caregivers and be able to execute some of these programs like an employee referral program is really the best way to do that. So those are some of the resources, again, guidance, coaching that our team is providing to franchisees and their office staff to help execute on the retention.
Okay. There's a question that came in, and then I have a couple questions from what you just said. So
Okay.
this question here says, do you recommend sign-on bonuses for caregivers?
Really, I hope you don't mind my answer, but I'm going to say, classic, it depends. So,
I knew that was coming.
I know. So I will say it depends. It depends on one of the things that we work with new franchisees on, as well as every couple of years of being in the system, is doing a competitive analysis in your geographic area to really understand what are your competitors doing. Because at the end of the day, if none of your competitors are doing hiring bonuses, there may be a reason. And it may not be working, it may not be moving the needle. Maybe there's some other things you need to look at, or maybe that becomes your competitive advantage. Nobody else is doing it, and so now you want to take a stab at it, but maybe you can start small if nobody else is doing it. So these are the types of things that will encourage and help franchisees through to really understand what's happening in your local market, because that's what's going to drive a lot of these incentive programs, hiring bonuses, all the different things.
Okay. Thank you for that. Circling back onto what you said before, to clarify, KPI means key performance indicators.
Yes.
Can you give some examples of, for somebody who's listening, like what on earth would a key performance indicator be for a caregiver? So what are some of the things that franchise owners look for to measure KPIs for caregivers?
Yeah. So another great question. So it's as foundational and basic as their on-time percentage to shifts. So
Great.
Are they showing up on time? How many call-offs do they have? What is their client satisfaction scores? So
Yep.
there's programs that right at home franchisees are automatically part of, which is part of our overall satisfaction measurement. And we look at client satisfaction as well as caregiver satisfaction, and we want to see both pieces. And so looking at client satisfaction is a great KPI. And then you're able to do a deep dive on client satisfaction and really look at the skill of the caregiver compatibility, the resourcefulness. Those are all pieces that can be used as KPIs. Training completed could be a KPI. So there would be a number of different pieces from a caregiver perspective that you could measure a caregiver's success and ability to develop within your office.
Awesome. What a great way to keep caregivers engaged, to hold them accountable. You know, we're watching these metrics, and I see a healthy competition going on between all the caregivers. We're like, yes, I didn't miss a single shift. I was on time. Yep. And I've seen, you know, some of our franchise owners are so fantastic at that caregiver recruitment and retention part, and keeping them engaged, and, you know, monthly contests, and, you know, like prizes, and like every franchise owner has their own unique way of doing things. But of course, we have so many recommendations and best practices on all the options that you can try, that you can do. But I do recommend even the resources that you get from the franchisor on best practices and things to try. You do have your fellow franchise owners in your system that you can consult with as well. You can call your neighbor to say, hey, I'm having a challenge with this. You know, how have you dealt with this, or have you dealt with this challenge? And what are some things that you recommend that I work on locally in this market as my neighboring franchisee? Okay, so how often, question for you, because no other questions have come in and I'm going to cover my list. How often is client and caregiver satisfaction measured? What's the frequency of?
It's ongoing. Yep, ongoing every month. It's randomized. And like I said, it's both client and caregiver.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So how does Right at Home support franchise owners in their progression as a franchisee? So you have mentioned a framework based off of the size of your office. And I'm assuming tenure, size, as the business grows, the needs change. So how do we assist our franchise owners with the growth of their business, and as things are changing, recommendations on, okay, so your business is growing, it's time for you to hire more caregivers, and what's the relationship look like between the franchisee and the franchisor, with franchise owners who are growing, and how to really stay on top of the caregiver demand and making sure they have enough caregivers based off of how many clients? What does that balance look like, and how does that work?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, Jen.
I know.
This is where, obviously our corporate office here in Omaha is very, very collaborative, and we're all really working towards that same common goal, which is to support franchisees and their growth within their business. The reason I bring that up is because my department, our employee experience team, works incredibly closely with our business performance coaches. And our business performance coaches, while very operational, are really that conduit, that navigator, if you will, for every franchisee. And they know what's going on in that franchisee's business. They understand the ebbs and flows of that specific franchisee's business, where they're at from a scaling perspective, where they want to be at, what the goals are, what the metrics are, and helping them reach those goals, and providing that business coaching to the franchisee, and then infusing our team, employee experience, our quality and standards teams. All of us are really working together holistically to elevate that. The only thing I'll add, Jen, and I know we're at 5 minutes, but the only other thing I will add is that our technology team and our data team does a great job of capturing what is actually happening in the franchise business from a data perspective. So are you getting the number of applications, caregiver applications, that you need in order to, based on conversion rates, from application to hire conversion rates? Are you getting the number? If you're not, a coach is going to say, let's look at this. What's happening? Can we post more? Can we post in different places? Can we change up the posting? What are we doing? So we're really using data to manage our coaching to help those franchisees make those decisions.
Yes. And I would argue that almost every single decision that we make is data driven. We're I would say the technology and the data team is one of the larger teams that we have. You should know that. And people strategy, aren't they one of the biggest departments that we have now, which is a pretty outstanding to say. Thinking back just not that long ago, it was a very small department, but there's such a major need for it. And really what drives the future of our business. Without that data, then we wouldn't have much. So everything that we make is based off of, here's what their numbers are showing us, and here's what we're showing in the forecast, and looking ahead to the future.
Yep.
And preparing for that. Okay. So we do just have a few minutes left. Is there anything, Nikki, that I didn't bring up today, or that we haven't talked about? If you're thinking through the audience that is listening, maybe just some final words on, things to focus on when you first become a right at home franchise owner, and you're focused on, recruiting caregivers, retaining caregivers, just some words of wisdom from you before we part ways.
Yeah. So, and please, if you do have any other questions, go ahead and put them in. We'll grab them as soon as they pop up. But
yep.
I will just say, you talk about engagement with peers, right? Franchisees engaging with their peers, and that is such a pivotal component of this. And we find that the most successful franchisees are those franchisees who are engaged with the corporate office for the coaching and the resources and the tools, but also engaged with their peers and really seeing and leveraging what is working for others. And we also here at the corporate office try to pull that in and host webinars and spotlight franchisees who are doing great work in one area or another. And that's really what this comes down to. I will just say as a last piece is that it's coming back. The recruiting has been tough for the last couple of years, especially caregivers. as we are coming down off. We're not done. I don't know the world will be done. Coming down off of COVID, we're definitely seeing those numbers come back. People are out there looking for work. There's so many good hearts out there, and there's such an incredible need for care. And we are seeing those caregivers really want to continue to make a difference, and doing that within a reputable brand and a name that is nationally, internationally recognized is such a great place to start.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Nikki. This was a great conversation. Hopefully our listeners found it helpful. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know that our listeners love these Tuesday talks, the things that we talk about. They enjoy listening to me ramble from time to time. It's entertaining at times. But anyway, sincerely, thank you so much for your time. Very informative. And let's do this again sometime.
Yeah. Thanks so much for hosting, Jen. Have a great day.
Okay. All right. Have a great day. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.